Hi, my name is Carla. I've been knitting for 1 year and 4 months, and these are my projects. It's been 2 weeks since I last filmed, but I still have a lot to show. I'm finally getting a little bit more consistent with this channel. I uploaded 2 weeks in a row. Hopefully this will make it 3 weeks in a row. I've been really enjoying making these videos, and I hope you're enjoying them too. In other news, Ariana Grande's deluxe album, Brighter Days Ahead, is out. It's so good. I am loving the sound for her. It definitely goes back to like the Thank You Next Sweetener era, but then it's definitely very much her current sound. I woke up at 7 a.m. yesterday to watch the short film that came out, and then I went back to sleep, but it was really good, and you should check it out if you haven't seen it. It's also the end of the month. It's getting warmer. Daylight saving started, so we got so much more sunlight in the evening, which is totally giving me life. I decided that I'm done with pants for the year. No more pants. I'm just going to be wearing skirts. I'll wear tights if I have to. I've been a lot more involved in my knitting community recently. I've been going to a bunch of local meetups and meeting new people, and I just feel like spring is springing in a way that is like lifting my seasonal depression and letting me go out and do things, which is really great. Speaking of being done with pants for the year, I'm currently wearing my cartoon character outfit per usual, which consists of a mostly black like mini skirt outfit and my folklore cardigan. I've talked about this so many times, but this is my folklore cardigan. The pattern is by Amy Gunderson. I made it last year and I love it. I feel like it goes with everything. I want to wear it every single day, but something that has been on my mind a lot recently is that it pills so much because of the yarn I chose. I used a superwash wool and it's knitted a pretty loose gauge for the yarn. I think I should have picked either a thicker yarn or used a smaller needle size. I didn't know so much about gauge when I was making the sweater, but also my second thought is that I don't really want to wear this out to threads. I fabric shave this almost every time I wear it, and so I'm afraid that one day it'll just have holes in it, and I don't like that idea. So I'm thinking of, honestly, with all of the knowledge that I've gained in the last year or so, I'm thinking of making another one. I know that sounds crazy, but I do think I want to make another one that looks exactly the same, and I want to make it out of a non-superwash wool, probably pure Ghent. I've heard that pure Ghent is a wool that people say that you make a sweater out of it and it lasts for like 50 years, and that's what I want. So I'm definitely going to keep this original cardigan, but I do want to make another one that I can like wear more frequently and not have it get damaged as much. This will always be the original cardigan that I wore to the Eras tour, so this will always be special to me, but I just don't want to wear it as frequently as I've been wearing it because it's so special to me. So when my knitting queue clears up a bit more, I will be adding a pure Ghent folklore cardigan onto the queue. So I keep thinking, like, how is it that I knit all day every day and I still only wear one sweater? And it's because I only have one sweater, but why do I only have one sweater? And I think it's because I knit a lot of gifts. I also knit a lot of socks, which I wear all the time. They're just on my feet, obviously. And I have been working on a lot of different like blankets or shawls or scarves that are not really something I would wear in a video. But also I keep just casting on new projects and not finishing them. So my goal is to, 1, finish more projects, and 2 is I want to spend more time on making things that are for me and for me to wear, and specifically tops for me to wear. So I think I'm getting closer to that goal, but we'll just have to keep checking in. I do have a few to show in this episode, so that's good. The first one I want to show is my first finished object of the episode, and that is my Heartless top by Midsummer Knits. So this is a top-down crew neck tank top that is kind of like a vest but fits more like a tank top. The construction is you start with the back and knit kind of a rectangle, and then you connect for the shoulders and make the heart area in a bunch of different pieces, and then reconnect down here, and then you knit in the round, and it's a lot easier once you get past the heart. I stopped in the middle to do the finishing pieces. I think the finishing parts look really nice. The top is a folded collar and the sleeves are double knit edges, and then the heart is finished with like an I-cord edging. I think that the finishing bits were pretty tedious, but then I think that they just produced such a nice, like, clean finished look. So I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So after the finishing bits, I finished the rest in the round. Then there's like a folded bottom hemline to keep the bottom edge neat. I'm gonna put this down because my arms are tired, but I knit this in a, wow, I'm tired. It's actually kind of a heavy top, which is a good thing and a bad thing. One is it is on the warmer side of a tank top because it's knit in DK yarn. So I wouldn't necessarily call this like a hot summer tank top, even though it is, you know, very cute and it looks kind of summery, but it is on the warmer side. The good thing about it being DK is it's relatively quick to finish. I didn't spend that much time on it. I just like worked on it a lot among a bunch of different projects, and that's why it took me several days to finish, but I think you could finish this pretty quickly if you wanted to. It definitely takes inspiration from the kind of outfits that like Sabrina Carpenter wears on tour with the heart cutouts. I think this is a very cute and like trendy silhouette right now, and I really love it. So I haven't tried it on since I blocked it, but I am happy to say that I did meet gauge almost perfectly. I just measured, and the gauge is 22 stitches by 34 rows, and I was getting pretty much that, 22 stitches by 34 rows, maybe 22 and a half, but I'm pretty happy about the gauge I was able to accomplish. I actually went down 2 needle sizes. It recommends US size 5, but I guess I am a loose knitter because I ended up using US size 3, but I did gauge swatch like 3 times to be sure. So yeah, I'm pretty happy that gauge swatching that many times was worth it. So the last thing I want to talk about is something that took me quite a long time to do is to finally put the wire in for the hearts. This top uses 20 gauge galvanized steel wire to shape the heart, and that is strongly recommended in the pattern that you put it in as you're putting in the I-cord edging. I saw a few people on Instagram that didn't put the wire in, so I wanted to try that. You might have seen in some of my previous podcasts that didn't look that good to me, so I decided to put in the wire after the fact. That made it a little bit more challenging because I, was trying to shove the wire into an already finished I-cord. So that was 100% on me. I think it still turned out okay. I was able to put the wire in and kind of hide the edges. I will say I'm not the happiest about the way the stitches around the heart look. They already kind of looked like that before I added the wire in, and I think adding the wire might have made it a little bit worse, but it is what it is. I think this is completely my bad. This could have been done neater, and I have seen it done neater on Instagram. So I've seen it done both messier and neater on Instagram. So I think it ultimately depends on the skill of the knitter, but that's the best I could do. I'm happy with it because it does look like a heart. Do I wish it was neater? Yes, but am I gonna do it again? No. I'm also a little bummed that you can probably see some of the places that I weaved in the ends. You can totally see with this yarn. I didn't mention I am using Knit Pick Stroll in the color Hazy Violet, and it's a fingering weight, so I'm holding that double, and I think it produces such a really nice fabric. It's a really nice color, but the one downside is that this color wave specifically is like very flat and matte, so you can see all the issues with any kind of unevenness, and that's again completely my bad and exacerbated by the type of yarn that I used. At the end of the day, I think only knitters will notice the way I weaved in my ends, so I think it's gonna be okay. Altogether, I do recommend this pattern. This pattern is completely unique. There is no other pattern like it that I've seen on the market, and I don't typically see cutouts in knitting, so I think that it is really cool that Emma was able to figure out how to do that. I think that it would be really fun to wear to a concert. I've seen people on Instagram that all made like matching tops and wore them together, and I thought that looks really cool. I wouldn't call this a beginner knitter project. I think there's a lot of techniques that you need to be relatively comfortable with. I think maybe you could call it an adventurous beginner project because there is the opportunity to learn so many different types of skills. So I think that if you're comfortable with knitting but don't know how to do like double knit edges or like I-cord or whatever, I think you could definitely learn, but I wouldn't call it an easy project, but maybe that's just me. But anyway, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I'm excited to try it on and take a bunch of pictures, and yeah, that's the Heartless top. For my second finished object, I won't talk nearly as long. These are my Uneek sock, spelled U-N-E-E-K. I made this with the Urth Yarns Unique Sock Kit number 61, and I did the heels and toes with Knit Pick Stroll in blue steel. And I think they look so good. The only difference from last video is that they're fully finished. I weaved in the ends and blocked them both. I made them in the Summerly Knits I'm So Basic sock pattern. It is a top-down heel flap and gusset. I did a 2x2 rib cuff. I also added 2x2 rib in the arch to help hug the foot. I used size 0 needles, and I just measured the gauge, and I've been trying to get to 10 stitches per inch, but I only have 9 stitches per inch, and this is a relatively thin yarn at 440 yards per 100 grams. So I'm still on that journey to get to 10 stitches per inch. I have that other pair that I'm working on in size 00 needles. By the way, that other pair of socks is in timeout ever since what happened in the last video. I just realized that I knit these socks in 2 different colors. Oh my. And I will muster up the courage to work on it again. I'm just a little bit mad about it, so I'm taking a break from it. I will pick it up again after a few more days pass. I was just too stunned. Just too stunned to deal with it. So I will deal with it, just not today. Anyway, these are my Urth Yarns Unique socks. I'm obsessed with the stripes and the colors, and they're finally done and they're finally ready to gift. Those are my 2 finished objects, so now on to whips. This is my porcelain sweater. I am so happy about this one. This is a pattern by Lee Knit. I'm making this in Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino in the color Cloud, and for the contrast it is Knitting for Olive Merino in the color Dusty Violet and a hobbii soft alpaca in the color Hydrangea Purple. Since the last time I showed this, I finished chart A on both sides, and then I finally connected at the armholes and started working on chart B. Chart B is a little bit rolled up right now, but that's what it looks like. I've been really enjoying working on this. It's so much more fun to work on color work in the round and no longer flat because I don't have to do any more purling. I've had to take a bit of a break on this to work on a test knit, but I'm really excited to get back to it because I'm just loving how it is looking. So I'm on my 4th ball of white, so that means that I have used at least 150 grams for this plus the swatches, and I'm still on the first balls of the contrast colors. I have no regrets about the contrast colors I chose. I'm gonna put it up close for a bit. So far it checks all my boxes in that I love the way that it marls. I love the way that the colors look against each other. I think it has the perfect amount of contrast. I think the 2 purples together make the perfect shade, and the alpaca gives just a slight halo without the whole project being irritating to me. Quick update on my allergies. I haven't been having problems working on this. I've been taking my allergy medicine twice a day, and my experience with working on this is much different from the first time I worked with the yarn. So I don't know if that was a fluke or if it's the allergy medicine that's really helping, but so far so good, and I'm pretty happy about that. If you've seen that there's like 4 needles poking out of this, it's because I'm working on this on 2 circular needles so that the stitches aren't super squished together. I don't know if that's a common strategy, but I'm doing it because I just don't want my floats to be too short, so I'm making sure that I'm never having to have all my stitches all scrunched together, and I can knit on it with the stitches all like relatively flat, if that makes sense. My next whip is from a familiar designer. It is the Groovy Tank by Midsummer Knits, the same designer of the Heartless top. So far it's just a 2x2 rib tube, but it's gonna get really interesting really soon. The bust is like an intricate design of ribbing and increases and decreases to make a really cool shape. I'll put a picture up, and I'm really excited to get there. I have like just a few more rows and then I should be able to start on the more interesting part. But so far I do actually have a few things to say about this tube. One is it's super stretchy and it's so squishy and it feels really nice. I'm knitting this using 2 oopsie colorways from Sewrella. Oopsie colorways are like Sewrella's like discounted one-of-a-kind colorways that they usually have because they made them by mistake or they made them in testing for another like official colorway. So you can't get these colors again, but they still look really nice and they're on the usual bases. So this is a nylon sock, fingering weight 80/20, 400 yards per 100 grams. And yeah, I got it at a discount during their oopsie sale, and I think the colors look really nice. And I say colors because these are two different colors. Like I said, they are one of a kind and they aren't like consistent, and that's part of the reason why they're called oopsies. So these are two lavenders that are like, one is slightly more pink and one is slightly more silver. And so the way I've been using them, because this pattern is going to take 200 or more grams of yarn, I wanted to use these both, but I didn't want like a sharp line. So this is my first time doing helical knitting. I don't know if you can tell, but the first like 30 or so rows, I am only using the more silver colorway, and then like halfway through this I switched to helical knitting, so I'm mixing both of the two colors together, and it does that in like such a nice and smooth way that you like almost can't tell unless you know it's there. And I feel like they kind of blend into one color, which is what I wanted them to do. And then at some point when I get to the top of this like waist area and I get to like the bottom of the bust, I'm just going to drop one of them and just use one color for the top part to make it simpler. If you don't know what helical knitting is, it's kind of hard to explain in words, but it's when you alternate colors between rows, but you do it in such a way that it's like a continuous spiral. And what's nice about this, instead of like the traditional way of alternating colors per row, is that this is where I started the second color. And if you look on the inside, there's no other indication or proof that you switched colors because it's so seamless. And so at the top row, we have like two yarns that are sticking out, but they're both kind of gonna go in their own path and they're never gonna cross, if that makes any sense. But it's just like such a nice way to blend two colors, and I think it worked out. And this is my first time doing helical knitting, but I'll definitely do this more for when I'm working with hand-dyed yarns, because these are not even the same colorway, and I think that they look really nice together. So I'm very proud of this tube. Fingering weight knits are not for the faint of heart. This took me several hours over several days to make this. This is several hundred stitches, so it's essentially like making like 3 or 4 pairs of socks, I think. So just know that I spent a lot of time on this, and I feel like that the fact that it's about to get really interesting is like my reward for working on this. The other thing I wanted to say about this is I did gauge swatch. I am using the recommended needle size, which is US size 1 or 2.25 millimeters. I mentioned earlier that I sized down for the other pattern, but I didn't have to size down for this one. Maybe it's the yarn choice that I used, but I did a gauge swatch and it didn't exactly meet gauge. This is something I'm still learning. I don't know how ribbing is supposed to work, but the pattern specifically says 40 stitches wide by 48 tall, unstretched, blocked and unstretched, but you might not be able to get to that gauge with a small swatch, is what it said in the pattern. So because I did a swatch and what I got was, I ended up getting 46 stitches wide and 42 rows. I kind of did some math and calculated that like, because of the stretching capabilities, it's kind of proportional. It was slightly narrower and slightly taller than it was supposed to be, but in a proportional way. So I kind of just like believed that if I stretched it out more horizontally, that the amount that it would shrink vertically would end up being equal to the gauge. And so I just decided to run with it. And then I figured I would just measure again when I had a bigger part of the top. And I think so far it is confusing. It's supposed to be 40 stitches per 4 inches, but I'm getting way more than 40 stitches for 4 inches, meaning it's cinched in a lot. So I think that means that if I want to measure it properly, I need to stretch it out more until it gets to 40 and then measure the height from there, I think. But what's also hard is that this isn't currently blocked, so I think that like I'd only really know after I block it. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna keep working on it and block it and see how it goes. If it turns out badly, I guess I'll just knit it up again. That said, I think it's just like, it's really challenging that it's hard to properly meet the gauge with ribbing. Like, if something is too narrow but also too tall, which direction do you change the needle size in? I actually don't know. So I'm hoping that it'll all even out in the end, but I don't know. I forgot to mention this is a test knit, so this pattern is not out yet, but I was able to apply to be a test knitter. This is my first time test knitting a pattern, so I'm pretty excited. I think I mentioned in another podcast that I did notice a few mistakes in the Heartless pattern, so I thought I'd be a good fit to test this pattern because I thought maybe I could be helpful just in case there are mistakes in this pattern. I met Emma recently in one of her virtual events, so I figured that it would be nice to support her more by test knitting, and I thought it would be a pretty cool way to learn more about knitting patterns and stuff. I don't think I'm necessarily interested in designing patterns, but I think it's still pretty cool to learn about the process. Because it's a test knit, that's why I, made the gauge swatch, and I'm really trying to make it as true to the pattern as possible. So I am hoping that the gauge ends up finding itself because, again, I don't know whether I should have sized down or up because it was both narrower and taller. So I am really just hoping for the best. One more thing is that I was really happy to get back to using size 1 needles, specifically my Chiaogoo size 1 needles, because after trying the other types of needles, both from Susan Bates and from Hia, I love my good old, beloved size 1 Chiaogoo needles, or just Chiaogoo needles in general. I think they are just the perfect feeling in my hands. They just feel so nice. I think that they feel sturdy, and I think that the tips, this is maybe a controversial or maybe an unpopular opinion, I think they're just the right amount of sharp. I think that Hia's are too sharp, and they poke me and they bother me all the time, and they make knitting a little bit unpleasant. And I think that Chiaogoos are sharp enough to get what you need to get done, but not so sharp that they ever hurt me, I guess. Yeah, so I'm just really happy to be working with my size 1s again. And hopefully I can get a pair of size 0s and 00s in Chiaogoo, and hopefully I like that as well, because I'm tired of the really pointy sharp ones. Okay, so like I said, we're about to get to the interesting part, so hopefully I have a lot more to show. Hopefully, maybe it'll even be done by the next time I talk to the camera. Okay, so my last whip hasn't been on the podcast in a while, and that is my Snowy Pines wrap by Hannah Notwell. This is a 24 repeat lace shawl. I have done half of them, so I've done 12 out of 24. I'm using the 2024 Hue Loco Botanical Fade Advent that I opened up last December, and I'm gonna try to show more of this in frame right now. I'm just gonna talk like this for a bit. I think the colors are so beautiful, and I think the lace is turning out really nicely. I've memorized the pattern at this point, so it is a pretty relaxing knit, even though I do have to pay attention. I've really been enjoying this, and I think it looks so nice, and I'm halfway there, and I'm excited to move on. The rest of the Advent shifts from the pinks and oranges into the purples, so that is, very much my color, and I just can't wait to get there. These are all fingering weight mini skeins, 20 grams per color, and I am using a size 3 needle, which is recommended by the pattern. And yeah, there's not much to say about this, but I just wanted to show how much progress I've been making, and I will definitely continue to show this on the podcast as I make more progress. It is really tiring holding my knitting up. My chronic illness is definitely showing. So no more holding up knitting. The last thing I want to show is just the one acquisition that I made in the last 2 weeks, which is some hand-dyed yarns that I got from Peninsula Yarn that they dyed specifically for my local yarn store, Imagine It, for the Bay Area Yarn Crawl. The Bay Area Yarn Crawl happened over the last 2 weeks, where all, I think 22 or something yarn stores in the Bay Area participated. There were a bunch of special events, and there was a bingo sheet and everything. I didn't attend because I think I buy enough yarn without being encouraged to buy more yarns. And it is kind of hard to get to all the other yarn stores that can be like several hours away from San Francisco. If there were convenient ways of public transit to get to the stores, I would consider going to them, but pretty much none of them are on public transit, so I didn't feel like I could go see them all in such a short period of time. But maybe one day, but for now I think I have enough yarn. I did buy these. So this is the show colorway for Imagine It. It's specifically made for San Francisco. It is called Sunset over Dolores Park, which is one of the most famous parks in San Francisco if you didn't know about it. And it is supposed to represent like a sunset, which I love. I love these colors. These are literally my favorite colors. So I saw it on Instagram and I really had to get it. These are the matching mini skeins that have some of the colors that are in this skein. These are actually in 2 different bases. So initially I wanted to get this one in the BFL Blueface Leicester sock yarn. The reason why is because I've never tried BFL, but I heard that it's way more durable than merino. So I really wanted to try it. However, even though I put in my calendar the day that Peninsula Yarn was going to do their trunk show, they sold out of this colorway in BFL before the day of their trunk show, which I didn't know was possible. So when I got there, I ended up getting this one in Stellina, which is not my preferred base. So Stellina is like a merino base that has like gold strands in it. So it's like sparkly glittery, which I'll be interested to try. I wouldn't have bought this if they hadn't run out of the BFL. So I guess I will learn what it's like to knit with Stellina and decide for myself if I like that. For all I know, that also helps with the durability because it's not plain wool. I don't know. Does it act like an extra nylon thread? I don't know, but I will be making some sparkly socks, I guess, with this. I did get the minis because these are in BFL, so at least I will be able to try. I think if I use these for the cuffs and heels, it will probably make the sock more durable as a whole. So I think they will just like look really good together. And that's it for today's video. I think that filming on a regular cadence means I'm not like overwhelmed with updates and I don't have to cut as much out. So I'm hoping to keep on this 2-week schedule for podcasts. I think it is a nice amount of updates to give. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a thumbs up, a comment. I respond to everyone. Subscribe if you want to see more. And just thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. I have been enjoying this process so much, and just thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you next time. Bye.